Welcome to If I'd Only Known, where seasoned online business experts share valuable tips to improve your mindset, increase your revenue, and gain insight on what they would have done if they'd only known what they know now when they started their businesses. And now, your host, Sherri Coffelt.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here today and to introduce Julie DeLucca-Collins. Julie is a highly sought after speaker, business coach, and author dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs to build and grow successful businesses. With a passion for helping women establish and expand their brands, Julie's become a trusted advisor for so many women. She's certified in tiny habits, and she leverages her expertise to guide individuals towards positive behavioral changes that lead to lasting success. Of course, that's what we all want, right? Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much for having me, Sherri. It is such a pleasure to be here and to be here with your audience. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I'm so excited about your topic today. You're going to be talking about how habits increase our confidence. And that's, of course, something we all need, right? Is more confidence. So tell me a little bit about how you got into that, how you got into looking at both habits and confidence.
Well, absolutely. This is a really fun topic for me. I actually just did a TED Talk about habits and confidence. And one of the things that I shared, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. We don't always feel confident. And although I was a very outgoing, gregarious young child, at the major point in my life when I started middle school, I lost a little bit of confidence. I was knocked down. And all of the sudden, I started to be this person I didn't recognize. I was very shy. I wouldn't raise my hands, so much so that at the age of 13, I walked into the wrong room in middle school for history class. And I was too shy to even say I was in the wrong room. And I was there for a long time until they noticed that I was missing from the correct classroom. And one day I realized that I didn't want to be this person who was sitting in the sidelines. I didn't want to be the person that didn't participate. That just didn't seem right for me. Additionally, I changed a little bit of my zip code, in which I went to a school that changed schools in which everybody was so accepting and open. And this made a big difference. And I think that a lot of times our environment has a little bit of influence on how we end up showing up. So it's key to pick the right environment. But for the most part, we won't always be able to find the circumstances that suits us best. So the first thing that I started to find is that if I decided to take a tiny step, especially when I was unsure, when I didn't feel confident, when I didn't feel like I could do it, if I created that tiny step, that momentum, I was able to begin. I was able to get going. I was able to then find the evidence that I could do it because I started to practice the thing that I didn't feel confident at.
Oh, that is
Fast
so
forward.
powerful. It's
Yeah,
that momentum is a beautiful thing, right?
absolutely. And I will tell you that this is something that I took with me throughout high school, college, and in my career. Now, when I was in a corporate environment, as I was climbing the corporate ladder, one of the biggest things that I would hear from other women, from my counterparts, is, wow, Julie, you got a promotion. I wish I was as confident as you are. And at times, yes, I did feel a level of confidence. And yes, I am ambitious and I went after the things that I wanted. But I started to find that the higher I got in the corporate ladder, not so many women would be there because
Yeah.
most of them were lacking that confidence. And I decided that I really wanted to give others the level of confidence to go after their dreams. But more importantly, it's not that we always have it together. It's not that we always feel confident. From time to time, we are going to feel inadequate. We are going to feel like we're lacking. But again, going back to that framework that I learned, that just do one little simple thing, put yourself out there, slowly raise your hand, say the thing. you begin to practice that confidence, and that creates the momentum. So
I hear you talking
how
about
I started.
action. Yeah, I hear you talking about action over and over again. It sounds like there's a big link between confidence and action, probably both ways, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that and fast forward so many years now, I was fascinated by habits. I was fascinated by this confidence concept and how they fit together. And I knew how they applied in my life, and I knew how that worked. And it wasn't until I started to write my book back in 2020 and into 2021, I started to do a lot of research and talk to a lot of women. And I started to see that to them, confidence was a feeling, not a habit.
Mm-hmm.
But I also found that the women who were confident had a habit of doing the behavior, practicing, being okay with failure, being okay with falling down and getting up again.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of 2021, as I was getting ready to publish my book, I met Dr. BJ Fogg. And of course, I read a lot of the habit books like Atomic Habits, The Power of Habits. But Dr. BJ Fogg is actually the behavioral scientist that most of those other books are based on, his research. And I was fascinated because the one thing that he taught me is that small, tiny steps are the way to go. And I thought, I've been doing this all along. Okay.
Right.
And the second thing that I found was that we have to have an existing behavior. We have to have something, or maybe something that clicks and says, boom, here's your prompt. Now do the behavior. And for me, every time I felt unsure, every time I felt that discomfort, that was my cue to step up even just a little bit and practice at being confident at whatever I was unsure about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I began to see how this can actually not only impact us in our own personal life and our relationships, but as a business owner, this is something that we all could use. We don't always feel, like we can do it. Like as we're building a business, nobody is born, right, knowing how to run a business. We have to learn, we have to practice. And that's one of the biggest things that I wanted to be able to help others with. And now, as I've been building my business since 2020, this has been one of the things that has really influenced, has really helped me, and has allowed me to get to the level of success in which I am today.
So I'm curious. We're talking about confidence. We're talking about consistent action, and I believe for entrepreneurs, inconsistency and overwhelm are the two biggest enemies. And I believe that the inconsistency causes the overwhelm. So consistent action, I'm there for you. I tell you, it's 100% agree. But consistency and confidence, chicken and egg, which comes first?
Well, the action comes first. And this is the research.
Actions builds confidence in your mind.
Here's the anatomy of a habit. There has to be first of all, there's three things that need to be in place to create a habit. Number one, the A, which is the ability to do the behavior. B is doing the behavior, and C is celebration. So in order to have a habit, you need to have the ability to do something. You need to be able to do the something. And the key part is we need to celebrate that we did something, because when we celebrate, our brain says, oh, I like feeling good. Let me do that again. So now, to your point, many entrepreneurs are not consistent. They go into the overwhelm. Guess what happens when we are in the spiral, the overwhelm? We're not going to change. We're not doing the thing enough to be able to practice it, but also to see the evidence that we're capable of. And that's what really sets us apart and allows us to build the confidence. If you look at athletes, for instance, they weren't born being geniuses at their craft. They had to practice it. And the more that they showed up, the more that they saw that they gained skill, the more motivated they felt. The more motivated they felt, then the more that they would practice. The more that you practice, the more that you feel confident, and then motivation. And it keeps just kind of spiraling up as opposed to spiraling down. When you don't do it, then you beat yourself up because you didn't do it. And then you decide you're not going to show up.
You just go down.
And then you're spiraling down. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really where that comes from.
Oh, that's awesome. So I know you believe in the tiny habits framework, correct? Is that
Absolutely.
BJ Fogg, is that his framework?
Yes, and that is the framework. In addition, the other thing is the framework really stems from knowing that we cannot go big or go home. Because if you decide, and this is the perfect time of year. I mean, people set up these resolutions. I'm
Right.
going to go to the gym and get healthy. I'm
Seven
going to
days a
work out
week.
every day, 7 days a week for an hour. But yet
Right.
you've been sleeping 7 days a week. In the morning, you're not getting up. So you may start with a big gun ho, excitement, and you're relying on motivation. When you rely in automation, in motivation, you eventually have the motivation go away. And
Right.
the difficult task, then it's hard to do because you're not motivated. However, in tiny habits, what we teach is if you start small, so tiny, so small that you don't have to rely on motivation, you do your action and then you celebrate that you did it, then you can start to build the momentum. It's like you're planting these little seeds that are going to grow, that are going to thrive. But most importantly, when creating a habit, you also have to pair it with the opportunity to do the new behavior.
Mhm.
So if you're going to go to the gym, maybe you want to get healthy and you haven't been, right? Maybe the thing that you do is you put your gym shoes next to the bed so that as you wake up, you look at the gym shoes and that's your prompt that gives you the ability, and you put your shoes on and then you celebrate. Oh, I put my shoes on. Good job. I am a person that works out. And you become that embodiment of the aspiration that you have. The more that you consistently put your shoes on, remind yourself, oh my God, I'm a person that puts her gym shoes on because they're going to work out. And by the way, you only are going for that tiny little step. And many people were like, oh, that's not good enough. I'm not going to be able to get in shape. Yes, you are, because if you have your gym shoes on, well, I might as well, maybe do a couple stretches. Maybe I'll
Right.
walk around the block. And then this is how your habits can
And it
continue to
builds.
build.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I just was on a call, and have you ever seen the video with the dominoes, and
Mhm.
that's all about the domino effect of it, that basically they line up 13 dominoes. The last one weighs 100 pounds, and the
Mhm.
first one is really teeny, like
Really
literally about
teeny
this big.
tiny. Yes.
And they show when they hit that little teeny tiny domino,
Mhm.
it can knock over the 100-pound domino. And
Yes.
I
And
think
that's
that really,
exactly how
really
life
fits with what
is.
you're talking about, because
Absolutely.
yeah, it says small steps create big results.
hmm And tiny is mighty, is what we
Yeah.
say. And this is the quote from Dr. Fogg. This is why I became a tiny habits coach, because I knew that I wanted to be able to help entrepreneurs create the
Mhm.
behavior that gave them the results. Because anybody can say, sure, let me be your business coach and let me show you how to do email. Let me tell you what
Right.
thing to use, how to market, how to get clients. And by the way, I do all of that. But what I do that is a little different is that I help individuals create the behavior, create the productivity
Mhm.
habits that will allow them to show up and become consistent. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times when we lose our momentum, right, then we don't get the results that we're going
Yeah.
for.
So to that point, when we do lose momentum, sometimes we get
Mhm.
off track, whether it's a diet or building a business.
Mhm. Yeah.
How do tiny habits help you get back into momentum when you kind of fall off track?
Amazing. This is so good. And by the way, I want to normalize that it happens to all of us, that we lose momentum. So, number one, let's say your domino is too far apart from the next
Mhm.
domino. Now,
Right.
you need to really notice what happened. Wow, I didn't put my shoes on to go for my walk today. Well, what happened? Oh, maybe I woke up and I was in a hurry, or maybe,
Mhm.
I went to bed late and I woke up very tired and didn't notice the shoes there. You need to notice and analyze. You got to put your lab coat on and become the little scientist or
Right.
detective of your own life and say, okay, what happened? where was the breakdown? And number one, not make yourself feel bad, because remember, when we feel bad, we don't change. So
Right.
notice, and then you want to neutralize. Okay, I messed up. I can do it again. Tomorrow is another opportunity. You want to neutralize the thoughts that are coming in, because our brain has that reptilian part that is always going to say, you're not good enough. Look at you. You
Right.
failed. Terrible. And when you start to dwell in those thoughts, then that's when it's going to become harder for you to keep going.
Right.
So notice what you're doing, start to investigate what happened that made you break. And then once you notice, you neutralize that you're not broken, you're human. You normalize the thoughts, you normalize that, hey, I'm going to have this happen. And then you do the last N of these 4N process. And that is that you do your next best action, which could be, hey, I just realized I didn't go for a walk. I didn't put my shoes on. Don't wait till tomorrow. Put your
Right.
shoes today. And even if you don't, right? Even if you don't go for a walk, you put them on, or you remember. Give yourself credit that you remember, and then you pay more attention to the next day.
Right.
And those are the big things. For instance, one of my little tiny habits that has definitely grown and can knock out a lot for me in the day is I drink a lot of water. And this is my water. I keep this at my desk as throughout the day. But at night, when I leave my desk, I take this and I put this on the kitchen counter next to the sink. Now, my kitchen has the back door. My counter is right next to the back door. My tiny habit in the morning is that when I bring my dogs downstairs to let them out, that's my trigger. That's my prompt. That's my thing. I let them out, and then I fill up my water and I celebrate.
Yeah.
That's all I do. And while when I fill it up, sometimes I drink a little bit of it and I celebrate that I drank a little bit of it. Sometimes I don't.
Right.
And sometimes, now when I let them in, that's my other prompt. I bring my bottle and I put it here at the desk so that it's ready to go.
Yep.
So it's prompting me to drink water. So it's reminding me. And every time I take a sip, I'm like, good job, Julie. You're a girl who keeps hydrated. And that makes me feel good and continue to keep going.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That power of celebration, I think it's so underrated.
Yes.
I personally, I start every coaching call that I do with client, new person, connection call, whatever it is,
Yes.
with the question, what are you celebrating today?
Me too. I love
And
that question.
it
It's
is
so
so,
powerful.
it's sad, for lack of a better word to me, how many people you ask that question can't think of a single thing. And I'm like, celebrate the fact that you got out of bed this morning. I mean,
there is always something to celebrate. A lot of clients are not used to that. And they're like, oh, I don't know. But that's what happens to many of us. We're
Well, and I
not
think it's
paying
part of being
attention
an
in the
entrepreneur to
evidence.
some degree, because we're always about what's next, what's next, what's next. And we forget the milestones along the way that got us there. We forget the dominoes in between the dominoes.
Yes.
And that's something that I think that if we just remind ourselves of that, like you're saying, celebrating those little successes, God, it just makes such a difference. I so agree with that.
It sure does. And by the way, I take it a little step further, because my clients really forget, sometimes don't like to, and have a difficult time finding a celebration. So one of the things that I encourage them to do is to keep an evidence book. Kind of like, remember, you're the detective, right? Keep an evidence book, and in your evidence, write down the to-dos, the things that you've done, from the little things to the big things, because there's going to be days in which you need to remind yourself, wow, I did that. Wow, this is something that I went around the block even though I didn't feel like it, or I drank my water even though it was boring, and I wanted more like a milkshake. Remind yourself of the wins, because living in the wins is, I don't know if you read the book by Dr. Benjamin Harding and Dan Sullivan, and it's called The Gap and the Gain.
I haven't.
Yeah, well, I recommend this book to everyone. I send it to my clients because it's a must read. And basically the concept is, many of us, right? And this happens, this is part of the human experience. Many of us live in the gap. We
Mhm.
start at point 1 and we want to go to 10, right? So
Right.
then there is
Yep.
that big gap.
Mhm.
As we're starting, we get from 1 to 2 to 2, 2.5. And then all of a sudden we look up and we're like, oh my gosh, 10 is never coming.
Mhm.
But yet you never give yourself credit for the gain. Wow,
Mhm.
I started at 1 and I moved all this
Mhm.
way. Let's celebrate that,
Mhm.
because when you're celebrating what you've been able to do, and yes, you still have a way to go, but you're going to give up on that long way to go if you don't notice what you've been able to do.
Let's pause and we're going to redo that because I forgot to turn off the dang phone.
Okay. I didn't hear it, by the way.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't hear it.
Interesting. Okay. Well, why don't you go back to talking about the book so I can cut it out.
You got it. Okay. So the gap and the gain talks about where we start. The gap is basically if you're going from 1 to 10, there's a gap.
Mhm.
And most people start at 1 and then they move from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 2.5, maybe to 3. And they look up and they see, wow, I'm not at 10 yet. When is that going to happen? Oh my gosh, look how far I still have to go. Then what happens is we're making ourselves feel bad. And then we don't want to show up and we're beating ourselves up. We go into that wah, wah, not feeling
Yeah.
good, right? Whereas if we at 2.5, or maybe at 3, whatever it is, and we look back and we say, wow, that's where I started before. I made progress. I'm moving ahead, right? That
Right.
is going to be
Yeah.
incredibly motivating, and it's going to help you to keep going. It's
Mhm.
like the GPS. If you're navigating, right? They don't show you all the steps.
Mhm.
They show you just a little bit, and you can go back
Mhm.
and you can see all the steps that you've already done, as opposed to
Right.
thinking, wow, I have an hour to go in this
Yeah, that's
ride.
that's so true. I love that. I love that. So, tiny habits framework. We've talked about so much already. Is there a kind of a synopsis, if you will, of what are the key things we need to take away?
Yeah. So the first thing is you want to go ahead and start small. One of the biggest things that we encourage anybody going through the Tiny Habits program, and we do a 5-day. It's a free coaching program for anybody who wants to participate. You can get myself or another Tiny Habits coach to coach you. And the first thing that we encourage individuals is to create a Tiny Habits recipe. Again, the Tiny Habits recipe consists of the prompt that's going to remind you to do the behavior, and obviously having the ability to do the behavior. Next, you're going to do the behavior and then you're going to celebrate. So let's say I want to be more productive. I want to create a habit of productivity. So, and this is one of the things I teach my clients. So my prompt is, when I come sit at my desk in the morning, I open my calendar and I celebrate. Now, once my calendar is open, really what I want to do is look at it and see what is ahead for my day. Now, that's very simple. And guess what? I look at my day. I start with that framework. I don't just come sit down like, okay, what am I going to do? Should I open email? Should I write here?
Mhm.
What am I working on? Be really intentional with noticing and start with something small. Another habit that we love teaching is called the Maui habit. And this Dr. Fogg lives part-time in Hawaii. So this is one of his favorite. And the way that we teach it is, when I wake up in the morning and I put my foot on the ground, I say it's going to be a great day and I
Yeah.
celebrate. And then all of a sudden, you're starting in the right foot. You're starting in a positive frame of mind. And then it's only up from there, rather than like, oh God, Monday again. Oh, I have such a busy day. Can you see the difference? So that frame of mind is going to help you see, like, okay, great. I said it's going to be a great day. I'm so glad. And by the way, I had, like I mentioned to you, Sherri, I have dogs. And
Yes.
my husband is typically gone when I get up, but I get up and I'm like, boys, it's going to be a great day today. And they're
Yeah.
jumping and they're excited because they're going to go outside. And that gives me a little hit of dopamine, like, oh, yay, they agree. It's going to be great. They're excited, right? And then that gives me the momentum to keep going. And those are the things that I want to encourage you. Find out what is it that you want to do? What is your aspiration? And then begin tiny. And
Right.
again, I have people that will say, well, I want to go ahead and journal every morning after I have my cup of coffee. But they don't keep the journal next to where they keep their coffee or where they sit to drink their coffee. So again, create the environment. The environment is very important for you to be able to do what you set out to do.
Right. Oh, those are some great tips. I love that. And I know you also have some free gifts, right? For the not one, but several free
Yeah,
gifts
well,
for the listeners.
absolutely.
Tell us about that.
So, number one, if you want to participate in the 5-day challenge, it's a 5-day coaching. It's free. Nobody tries to sell you anything. We really want to get the message out there that tiny is mighty and that anybody can create the right habits for their life. So, if you go to goconfidentlycoaching.com/quick links, there is a sign up there for you to take advantage of the program. And then you will, and by the way, the coaching takes less than 3 minutes a day. So in 3 minutes, you can create the right behavior. 95% of people that go through the coaching programs, and we've had thousands of people participate, say that after participating in the 5-day program, they're able to create some great habits that help them keep the momentum for who they want to become and what they want to do in life.
Oh, that's awesome. And the link will be in the
The
show notes.
link is, and by the way, the other thing that you can find in there, because some of us, I'm raising my hand, are that perfectionist, or some of us are that person that gets distracted easily. And we have these sabotaging behaviors that are part of who we are. And that's neither good nor bad. It's just some of the behaviors that we created to protect ourselves as we were children. And these things are important for us to identify so then we can notice them and then we can decide, oh, I'm being a people pleaser. How is that helping me toward my goals? I'm putting myself last. Or, hey, I am someone that gets easily distracted, is going to get distracted and going to do a whole bunch of different things. Or I'm going to be controlling my environment. And if I can control it, then I'm not going to show up. So there is a quiz there that you can take to see what are the things that sabotage you? And I will give you some tips on how to overcome your saboteurs.
Love it. So make sure you check the show notes below. The link to get to those amazing free gifts will be there, and as well as links to connect with Julie. So Julie, thank you so much. But before I let you go, I have one last question for you.
Yes, let's do
So
it.
you've been an entrepreneur for some time.
Mm-hmm.
If you had known now, if you had known what you know now when you started your business, what would you say to your new entrepreneur self?
You know, failure is part of the process. And allow yourself to fail and allow yourself to fail fast and keep going. Because the more failures that you have, the more that you will innovate, learn, and grow from them. So don't feel bad about something not going the way that you think it should. Don't compare and despair. Stay in your lane. And again, fail fast, fail well, and then you will continue to build your success.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I always say there's no such thing as failure. There are only results that we learn from. I
Absolutely.
love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for that insight. It's been amazing to hear about Tiny Habits Framework and how those small actions can add up to those huge results. Make sure you check on the show notes below to get access to Julie's free gifts and take advantage of that 5-day coaching program. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you so
Well,
much, Sherri. You're amazing.
You are so awesome, Julie. I appreciate your time. And I know that the listeners are going to get so much out of our conversation today. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Go confidently, everybody. You can do it.